True story. I was working on my son's recurve this spring. I was doing something with the string, and I don't recall, but I had cause to take the Selway slide-on quiver off. And when I did, it dawned on me, that sucker's over 30 years old. I mean, I can't tell you how many bows that thing's been on, but that thing has been on some pretty good trips, and it's been on some pretty miserable trips. And it still works well today. Just new grippers once in a while, depending on my arrow material, a few new foam hoods. But what a poor business model to make a product that lasts a lifetime. So much so that I mentioned it to Drew. And he said, well, why don't you send that thing in and I'll refinish it? I said, hell no, this thing's got character. Well, I got a few more Selway quivers these days, but I'll tell you, pretty solid when you spend your money and a product lasts over 30 years. Give Selway Archery a call. Buy once, cry once. Hey everybody, welcome to a bonus episode of the Stickbow Chronicles brought to you by the Blackwidow Bow Company. I'm Rob Patuto, and I've got a special guest here as a co-host, Brian Burkhardt. What's going on, Brian?
Hey, not much, Rob.
You just
hanging out in northern Michigan at my cabin.
Yeah, I know. We all feel super bad for you when you're posting pictures of those like world-class meals you're cooking and hanging out up there. And I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, it's a rough life, but I'm getting used to it.
Well, hey, sometimes things trip my trigger, and here recently with the advent of this two-shot crossbow showing up on the scene, I was like, you know what? We need to talk to the Pope and Young Club and talk about what it takes to, get everybody to stand shoulder to shoulder, because we can have our differences on, fill in whatever trips your trigger, is it lighted nocks or expandable rod heads or, whatever. Those things are going to pale in comparison in the short term compared to the impact that some of the stuff, the air bow, and I always say bows, but they're not really bows. So for me, it was like, hey, let's talk about where the line in the sand is for everybody to stand shoulder to shoulder. So got a hold of Jim Willem, got a hold of Brian Burkhardt. And, what'd you think about the discussion, Brian?
Yeah, I thought it was good. Jim's a great guy, and he's pretty passionate. And I think what was really good, and it will certainly come through, is he was very candid about, his position about the crossbow being an archery season and the fact that it's not a bow. So, and it's one thing to basically, complain about it or say negative stuff about it. But I think the one good thing with Pope and Young is they've actually got some resources that can help out state organizations in terms of keeping it out of the bow season. So, it's one thing to talk negative about it. It's another thing to actually, make a difference and have some resources available to help.
Yeah. I mean, it's my experience that not everybody can, again, we mentioned Mike Harris during the episode. Not everybody can spend their time, volunteer their time doing things for their state organization. But the one thing you can do is spend the $35, $40, $45, whatever it is to join. And I would urge people, especially, gosh, this is a good one, especially in this era where groups are having a tough time because of this COVID thing. And, not everybody has funds to spread around everything they believe in, but take a piece of paper, take a minute and write down what is important, to support. For me, there's about 4 organizations that I absolutely support, and they are in an order. and Pope and Young is on that list. It's not because I have always been a supporter of the Pope and Young, but, I look at today's climate, and I think we do a good job discussing it here, but there is a point in time where we have to put our small differences apart and stand up to big manufacturers.
No, I'm still here.
Yeah. So I would urge you guys to think highly about what organizations you got to. What is it? You got to stand for something. You'll fall for anything.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I'm like you, Rob. I mean, it's one of those where you need to be part of the solution. So it's again, one thing to complain about stuff, but you've got to be part of the solution. And by becoming a member, it actually provides some financial. You're being part of the solution because through your membership dues, you're providing resources that help organizations, fight the crossbow coming into archery season.
Yeah, and not just for that membership fee, but it was my experience when I was involved at Idaho State Bow Hunters. It's a lot easier to go to a commission meeting and say and have more clout when you say, you know what, I represent 6,000 members. And I'm just throwing that number out there as
right.
As opposed to saying, I represent 5 people,
Yeah, exactly.
When the Pope and Young speaks, you want them to have a loud voice. And, I get it. I'm going to get some blowback on this. I get it. People are going to say, but this and but that. Stop and really think about things. Like, is it worth cutting your nose off to spite your face? Like, we can argue about the little things later. We need to join forces and stand up against this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter what organization it is. You're not going to agree 100% with everything they do. And that goes for bow hunting organizations, churches, you name it. So it's one of those things where focus on the things you do agree on and help each other out in that regard.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Which, one thing we didn't talk to him about, it's coming upon us is another spring season and another year of possible Canadian border closure. And I know you missed a hunt last year. You got anything you're trying to make this spring?
Well, yeah, I'm actually got another hunt scheduled in Manitoba, a bear hunt at Stick Flinger. So hopefully the borders open up so we can make that hunt happen. I had to cancel it last year. So
yeah, I can't imagine all of those outfitters north of the border that were scrambling after last year. Man, they can't. I really, really hope their government works a deal out so we can get the border open and get some of us up there to have fun and support what they do. I mean, that's their livelihood.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I had so much fun talking to Ryan when he was on. I had a blast talking to him. I'd love to share a camp with him.
Yeah, he's got a great outfit. So, like I said, I'm just hoping all this gets cleared up so we can get up there.
Man, they kill some monsters too.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. I really appreciate your time, Brian. Kind of a crazy middle of the day recording. I knew Blake's got a real job. He wasn't going to be able to make it. So I appreciate you jumping on here.
Yeah, no problem. Just getting ready to, cook some dinner. So we'll see what it is tonight. I mean, I'm stuck in a rut. It's either venison or Alaskan fish. So
what a horrible rut.
Yeah, it's not a bad rut to be stuck in. So
thanks to the sponsors. Big thanks to the sponsors. Kifaru International, The Footed Shaft, Selway Archery, and of course Blackwidow Bows. Stay after it, everybody. I hope you enjoy the episode and give real thought about who you support. That's all I got. Roger out. So, Jim, how's it going, man?
It's going great. We got good weather here. I'm going hunting next Wednesday, so right now I'm working on my four-wheeler and a trailer and stands and just trying to get everything ready.
What are you hunting for?
I'll be hunting a new ranch in Sonora for Coos deer.
Oh, is the rut in swing down there?
It is, and we're, a little later than I'd like to be. But, it's not really, it's not a guided hunt. I'm just going down with a biologist to look at a new ranch, and it's kind of an experimental thing. So we'll see. It could be one of those deals where it's just fantastic, or it might be a waste of time. You just never know.
Well, I'm sure that while you are down there hunting, I will be working. So it sounds like a fantastic time to me.
Yeah. It doesn't suck.
I'm not going to say that for Brian though, because I don't think he'll be working.
Well, no, I'm not working, but our seasons are over, so I'm not able to do any hunting right now unless I travel. So, but that Mexico hunt sounds like a good time, Jim.
Yeah, it always is. We did it. If you're a Pope and Young member, you might know about it. We had Pope and Young sponsored hunts for 5 years down there. I think it was 9, 10, 11, and 12, and 13 maybe. And at one point we had 24 hunters hunting on four or five different ranches, pretty much all adjoining. But we were in 3 different groups, and man, we had a great time. We our best year we went 18 for 24, and then drought kind of got hard on things. The ranchers didn't really manage for deer, and it just kind of fizzled out. So I'm trying to find a replacement for that hunt.
So you mentioned tree stands. Is that typically how you guys are hunting them?
On the ranches we hunted before, it was some tree stands, but it was mostly ground blinds on water holes. This property we're looking at has a pretty good sized river running through the middle of it. So water hole hunting might not be a great opportunity. But where we hunted before, one of the ranches had a live stream running through it, and we were able to find a spot where like 4 ridges all came together down into the bottom and really funneled them in there, and we were really successful there. So that's kind of what I'm counting on, is the river bottom, scrape line, travel routes off the ridges, and and that's better than hunting water holes because they're not so wired when they come in. You see one, he's liable to still be there when the arrow gets there. So I like that kind of hunting.
You guys do much calling, rattling for those at all?
A little bit, and it works. But if you're setting water holes, you mostly just kind of wait and hope something comes by. These scrape lines and whatnot, yeah, you try the rattling, and I don't know if grunting really works. They do grunt a little bit, but they don't seem to pay attention to it like a big whitetail does. But rattling's definitely an option.
Well, Jim, you've been on before, and really it's been around the Pope and Young Club. You're the past president. Do they have you are like a board member at large now, or what's your position now, or do you have one?
Well, the board position is past president. The Pope and Young Club has 13 board positions, 7 elected and 5 appointed. And so the past president is automatically on the board until he gets kicked off by the next past president. And it's one of those positions where you're kind of done with it, and you think, well, I was president, and now I'm just on the board, and do I really need to be all that involved? But then you realize that just the history and the past 8 or 10 years of history of the club is really important to point out at board meetings, just to let people know, we talked about this before, and this is why it didn't work. So you're kicking around the same ideas over and over again. So maybe we need to look at a different direction.
That's an interesting aspect, because I see that in our game department, when new biologists come in and you have turnovers of staff, and why is this season here? Or, they lose sight of why 10 years ago you created or removed a season or shortened it. But yeah, to continuity of an organization, that probably is pretty important.
Yes, it is. Yes.
So with this whole COVID lack of conventions and rendezvous, we all, Brian, myself, you, how many awesome events that we look forward to every year have been, crushed and canceled. Some of them are just fun, but some of them are the livelihood of organizations like the Pope and Young. Let's talk a little bit about that, because that directly impacts the bottom line. But not only that, but it impacts membership, because lots of times when these things come to your town, you show up, you're a member, and that's how you get new blood.
Oh, absolutely, and it's been tough. Obviously the COVID and the lockdowns have been tough on everybody. But organizations like ours, we make a considerable amount of money that we really need to survive off of our conventions. And if we can't have that, we have to come up with other ways to raise funds, or, we have to diminish the service that we offer, which is in the form of layoffs, not as many people in the office and things like that. And you look back into last year, and I'm thinking, I believe I went to Safari Club in Reno early February, and represented the club there, and we try to have a booth at as many of the big shows or trade shows that we can, as long as it's affordable. If they charge you a bunch of money, we don't do it. We expect comp booths, since we're a nonprofit, and if we can get that, we'll try to get somebody there. And I've been doing the Safari Club and Dallas Safari Club and a handful of others, and a few of the more local state organizations. And, right after Safari Club, let's see, our local chapter was basically the next weekend, and that was on a Saturday, and they canceled it on a Friday. And then everything just went downhill from there. And the Pope and Young Club had decided to go to annual conventions for 2020, just because we needed to get out in front of more people, and there's a lot of reasons to do it, but mostly it was exposure and fundraising opportunities. And then our event was in April, and it got canceled. Took a lot of flack on social media from that. Everybody, well, not everybody, but you have a handful of guys that are saying, well, geez, they canceled the NBA, and they've canceled this, and they canceled that, and Pope and Young's a disgrace for not stepping up and canceling their convention when everybody else is doing it. You got to do the right thing. And I tried to tell people, we signed a contract. We said we're going to have X amount of people at this event and spend this much money, and you can't just cancel. We can't cancel. We were pretty sure that they were going to cancel the event, but we had to wait for outside influences to cancel it. You can't just step up and say, we're going to do the right thing, and we're going to lose $300,000 just because it makes people feel better. So no, we couldn't do that. Yeah, just like everybody else, our convention was canceled last year, and thank goodness we have a really creative staff, really good convention people, and we ended up doing the totally, well, not totally, but mostly online auction. They put together a small venue in Utah, and some people that could drive to that went to that, and so they got to witness the live auction. But our online auction did, I'm going to say, at least 80%, but probably 90% of what it would have done if we'd have had 700 people in the room. So thank goodness for that. All of the outfitters supported it. Stayed on with us and kept the hunt in there, just hoping that we weren't going to give stuff away. And, the bow hunters stepped up and they bought the hunts, and there were no bargains at that auction. It was pretty much like a Pope and Young Club auction. So that was a huge help. For the last year, what we did lose was all of our advertisement and our promotional items and printing and awards and all of that we were going to give out in Virginia. You'll never get that back. But we did come out okay on the auction. So we were able to survive the year without, we had to cut back a little bit, but not real bad.
So Jim, you guys have another convention scheduled for this April out in Reno. What's the outlook for that?
Just like everybody else, we don't know. We're kind of optimistic because it is April. It is a few months down the road and the vaccine's out and all of this. But within about a week from tomorrow, I think we're going to have a board meeting, and we're going to decide no or go. And because we can't wait until March and cancel it. And we're not going to cancel it. We will come up with another option. It's possible that, we're limited to 200 or 300 people on site. We still have that. And then we have a kind of a hybrid on site and online event, and, put all of our seminars and whatnot online. That's a possibility. The club is just looking at a whole lot of other choices, how we can make it work. And we'll kind of figure that out within about the next 10 days.
Operating costs, covering operating costs, I mean, that's obviously a huge issue with an organization, magazines, you're trying to keep things rolling. But you also, the membership. So I was recently talking to, I don't know if I want to say the name, a national organization that we all know, we all support. We're going to do a podcast with them in a few weeks. They said across the board, their membership was down 25%. Now, financially, they said they're fine, but 25% of your membership down. Now, for an organization like Pope and Young, when you guys are going to game departments, writing letters, to me, it's important to have a big number behind you. Can you speak to that? How has your membership numbers fared?
Yeah, I can, and we've been fortunate there. We're fairly static. We may be down a little bit, and if we're down at all, it's basically because of those 200 or 300 new members we get at the big conventions at Safari Club and ATA and the state conventions and whatnot. We sell a couple hundred memberships there every year. But a lot of the reason we're able to sell those is because we're having a membership drive where if anybody that joins, during the show season has a chance to win a $1,500 bow. And we can still continue to do that sort of stuff online. So our membership is, we're not down 10%. We might be down 3 or 4% right now from, say, a year to a year and a half ago, which is pretty good, I think. It's good testament to some of our board members and definitely to our staff to just keeping the club out in front of people.
So, Jim, do you have any membership drive going on right now?
Yeah, but I don't know the details because I haven't been going to any shows. We pretty much give away a free bow every year, and I've probably seen it in front of me. I'm going to say I'm fairly certain that Hoyt has stepped up and offered another free bow, and basically any bow that they have, with the exception of maybe one of the Olympic bows and that sort of stuff. But they've been really good, and they've given us a bow to use for our membership drive for, 6 or 7 years now.
Nice.
Cool.
Well, and the way it works is we start selling memberships at the shows, and the first one's always been ATA, like the first week in January. And then we wind it down either after our convention or kind of the last shows, around 1st of May.
So 3%, that's not bad at all. And I guess in hindsight, the organization I'm talking about, they have banquets all across the country all year long. So it does translate into, more opportunity, people coming through the door to join. So that's awesome to hear you guys aren't down that many.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to quantify because sometimes we'll go 2 or 3 months without purging people that are past due, and then you purge those 100 or 200 members that didn't renew, and then this month it's like, oh my God, we're down 500 people, and then 3 months from now, we're back to normal. We're back where we were before. So it's a little hard to judge, especially now when our staff is struggling to keep up, and they're keeping up fine, but there's just been a lot of days when you wanted information and the right person wasn't in the office because they had exposure or were only open half days, or all the problems. It's been a struggle.
What about there was an email about the museum up there is it in Minnesota?
Yeah, Chatfield, Minnesota is where our club headquarters, office, and museum is, and yeah, let me talk about the museum. A great segue there. The Pope and Young Club has it's called the Pope and Young Club St. Charles Museum of Bow Hunting History, and it was originally Glenn St. Charles Museum in Seattle, Washington. A huge collection of some really cool stuff, and as Glenn was getting older, he was the founder of the Pope and Young Club, and he was past president and past board member, and always involved. His family didn't really want to be in the museum business, so they were looking for a place. And there's two options: either somebody buy the entire museum, or they just start piecemealing it, putting them up for sale one piece at a time. And they, to their credit, they probably could have made more money if they'd have sold one item at a time, because there might have been something in there worth $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 just for one item. For instance, we have, as far as I know, the only Ishi made stone point in existence. It's in our museum, and that's got to be worth a ton of money.
Wow.
So anyhow, Glenn approached the club and said, I'd like to sell this to the club, and he gave us a good deal. We purchased the museum. First year or so, it stayed in Seattle in St. Charles property, knowing that it was going to have to move. And even at that time, you see writings and minutes of the meetings where people expressed a desire to, if we could get this in a big box store somewhere where 10,000 people could see it a year, that would be just ideal. For a whole lot of reasons, it ended up in Chatfield, Minnesota. The main reason is that's where our office was, the Pope and Young Club office. And the office was there because that's where our executive secretary was at the time. And our executive secretary, Glenn Heisey, and a few local guys, they had put together a proposal to purchase a building there at Chatfield and rebuild the museum inside that building, move everything to Chatfield, and that way it's all in one place, and it's where people can see it. And that's what happens. Even originally, there's a lot of people that really didn't like that location, but they really didn't have a lot of other options. They didn't have a presence in any centralized city or bigger city, so they put it there. Built a beautiful museum with all this collection and have added to it. The Heisey family did a phenomenal job of maintaining the museum and putting things out and getting donations to cover the cost of it and all of that. But here we are. That was around 2000 when that happened. 20 years later, it's a major expense to the club. It has been for a long time to maintain a big building like that, and the opportunity is getting closer to put it in a big centralized location where potentially 1 million people a year could see it. And I've personally started working on this in 2015, and we've been in negotiations ever since, and it's getting closer and closer every day. In fact, it's close enough now that we have actually we put the building on the market because we can see we're not going to need 12,000 square feet for just our offices and our records. And the museum's going to be moved sometime within the next couple of years. I don't know what that time frame is, but there was some concern we're closing it down, and no, we're not doing that, and we're not getting rid of stuff. It will be a long-term loan to place it in a spot where certainly tens of thousands of people will see it every year, and maybe hundreds of thousands.
And to be clear, it's not just I got this is a question, not to be clear, but it's not just Glen St. Charles's collection. I'm assuming there's much more than that.
There is much more than that, and it's it's dioramas, and you start. It's the history of archery or history of bow hunting, and all the way from 10,000 years ago and stone points and really crude equipment to Native Americans to Ishi, meeting Pope and Young and Art Young and his travels around the world, and Glen St. Charles and his bow making, and Fred Bear and his adventures, and then on into more modern bow hunting. And they have a pretty good collection of the evolution of the compound bow. So it is basically the history of bow hunting since the dawn of time.
Brian, you think anybody we know has stuff in there?
Well, I think, I think nobody on this call, I don't think, but maybe Jim, but not you and I, but I think M.R. James has got a bear in there, if I remember right. And
like a bear, not a bear bow, a bear?
No, a bear mount,
Yeah.
That's another part of the museum, is we have at least one of each of the 29 species on display, mounted and on display within the museum. That takes up a lot of the wall space around the peripheral, and then we have some life-size stuff. And I don't know, I kind of lost track. We might have 8 or 9 of the current world records on display there in our Chatfield office.
Wow. I would.
Yeah, I would go visit Glenn, so I would get to see his museum. And to your point, Jim, the stuff he had in his museum is just, you get chills when you're touching the stuff and looking at it, and thinking back on the history and how we got from those times to where we are today. So yeah, I've never been able to make it to the museum in Minnesota, but wherever it gets moved to, I'd like to go visit it to see the other stuff.
I gotta imagine that whatever store or corporation you're talking to, that man, I would think that would be beneficial. Get more people through the door, because I've been chasing that museum since it was in Glenn's over in Washington. Didn't make it to Chatfield. One of these days, I surely would like to go see that.
Well, yeah, it's still open now, which is day to day, considering the way things are going with COVID and whatnot. It was actually closed for several months through the last spring when everything was closed down, but it's still open in Chatfield, and it will remain open until either we sell the building and have to move out, or we secure enough space in the new location to get it moved in. There could be a short period of time where it just ends up being in storage, but hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully it gets moved, and we can announce a grand reopening and partner with the people that are helping us do it, and turn it into a really big event.
There's no chance it's in North Idaho, is there? Just going to throw it out there.
No. No, that wouldn't be a whole lot better than Chatfield, Minnesota.
Well, I don't know. So really, personally for me, why I wanted you to come on, Jim, was I'd like to talk a bit about, there's always, I don't want to say friction, but there's always this undertone between traditional guys and compound guys, and some of it's just good conversation, but it goes a little bit too far at times. And for me personally, there comes a time where there's a line in the sand where we collectively need to stand together. Now, we can have a healthy disagreement and a conversation and even, quote unquote, fighting a little bit over equipment and the meaning of the seasons and all of this. But with this constant barrage of crossbows, along with some other technology. To me, I would love to see people support an organization that's geared towards protecting what we have. It's a complex issue for sure, but overall, can we shift to that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So where do you want to start? You want to start from how this all began and what has transpired over the years? That's probably the best way to go.
Yeah. If you would, that'd be great.
Okay. So let's leave bow hunting equipment out of the equation for now, and let's talk about crossbows.
Okay.
Because two totally different things. You know, I don't care who you are. Crossbow hunting is not bow hunting. It's just not. And just because you can use a crossbow in the archery season does not mean you're a bow hunter. It's just not. It's a totally different weapon. It's like comparing a flintlock muzzleloader to a 30-06. You know, they have separate seasons, and there's a reason for that. Our problem was crossbow has the name bow in it, and we started out, you know, trying to fight the battle. Let's just get back to the history. Crossbows weren't really ever an issue until the invention of the compound crossbow, which increased their efficiency tremendously. And you know, even the earlier compound crossbows weren't anything like they are now. And of course, now you get into advertisements. You know, they don't even pretend that they're bows anymore. They say, you know, meet your new rifle, and 100-yard shots off the shelf and things like that. But just a little history background. Back in the early 2000s, when the compound crossbow really started to look like it was going to be an issue and take away bow hunting opportunity, a bunch of guys within the Pope and Young Club, to their credit, they decided that we needed to form a separate organization devoted to the political end of bow hunting. And there's reasons for that. One is, you know, Pope and Young Club is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we have to be careful about how we advocate for or against certain legislation. There are ways around that, and we're pretty good at that. But anyhow, to make sure that we were doing the best we could, we created the North American Bow Hunting Council, NBAC for short. And it was, you know, pretty well put together by Pope and Young members and board members to get it started. But then they invited pretty much every state and local bow hunting organization that they could find an address for, and including game and fish people from around the country to a big meeting. And they had it in Chatfield, Minnesota, believe it or not, at our office. With the intention of supporting bow hunting opportunities and fighting the crossbow issue. Excuse me, I got to take a drink there. So the NBAC started off with some seed money from the Pope and Young Club and brought in a bunch of people and really turned into a pretty heavy-duty organization very quickly that was able to help state organizations, you know, right off the bat with tools to fight the crossbow issue. And, you know, not to lay blame or anything, but it went really well for about 3 or 4 or 5 years until the leadership of that organization, the NBAC, decided that they wanted to be more autonomous from the Pope and Young Club, which, you know, in itself, that shouldn't have been a problem. But when they broke away from the Pope and Young Club, within a couple of years, it literally did not exist anymore. And just like any state or local organization, national organization, it lives and dies by its leadership. And if you don't have leaders that are just working their butts off day after day after day to make it work, it just fizzles. So I look back at that and think, man, we had it going on, and then we lost it. And when we did lose it, you know, that's when the other side was able to step in and start getting a lot of wins.
You got anything to add to that, Brian?
Well, I was just going to ask, since the NABC went down, is Pope and Young actively involved in fighting the crossbow now?
Yes, we are. That's a great question. I feel like we had kind of a lull there after the NBAC folded up. And I wasn't on the board, so I don't know exactly how involved the club was. But I do know for the last 6 or 8 years, we've been heavily involved trying to help states, beat back this battle. And the thing you have to realize is that the states pretty much have to ask us to help, or somebody needs to bring it to our attention, because unless we have a board member in that state, we really aren't up to what's going on. But just in the last 4 years alone, I've been involved with a lot of other people, working with the state of Montana, helping them with statistics and information and tools, and Utah, Kentucky, Wisconsin, and these are the states that are always battling, whether it's keeping them out completely or keeping them in their separate season, or keeping them out of just the general bow hunting season. And what we can do is we can be kind of a clearinghouse for the various states, and we keep track of what worked in one state and what didn't work in another state, and the talking points and the PowerPoints and the statistics and this and that. And without someone on a national level, being able to help out, the states are starting from scratch, and they're starting with totally volunteer people, and it's just an almost impossible battle to win. So it's over my tenure being on the board, we have worked with a lot of states trying to keep it out. We've had a lot of failures. There's some of it where we just can't fight the money, and can't fight. We can't do the lobbying, but there's been a lot of wins as well. And I'm proud to say it's not a losing battle, but it's a tough battle.
You just said it right there. Fighting the money. So just to boil this down, we're talking about a nonprofit organization, a national organization that is trying to battle against corporations that I hesitate to throw a dollar figure at what this is worth to these corporations, but you don't see I don't know how to phrase that, but you're going up against big corporations, and they're going to continue to hammer away and chip away because it's about money to them. I'm pretty sure, I'm almost guaranteed that you name the crossbow manufacturer, and their skin in the game is the dollar. They don't care if we have general seasons, just as long as they get their weapons in.
You're exactly right, and just for instance, on the state level, when you're dealing with legislation on the state level, at the bare minimum, you would probably spend about $50,000 a year on a part-time lobbyist to help you with your issues, and what state organization can afford to do that? I've worked with some that have teamed up with like the local safari club and Colorado bow hunters, and they pool their resources together and are able to come up with $20,000 to get a part-time lobbyist to help them on specific issues, but we just don't have the money. And here's this has been my goal for a long time, and it's going to happen. The Pope and Young Club has been trying to work more with state organizations and reaching out to them to see where we can help. And sadly, as soon as we gain some traction, then something happens and we lose it. Whether it's an employee quitting or, transferring, or, the volunteer working on it just didn't get it done, or, even COVID, all of this stuff. Every time you gain traction, you lose it. But our goal is to have a staff person within the Pope and Young Club that person's job is to coordinate with the state and local organizations and be able to help them whenever they ask with whatever they need other than cash. I don't know if we'll ever have enough cash to do that. But, maintain the information and the records and find out what works. But how are we going to do that? Can we afford another employee within the club, especially at this time? Well, you know what that takes? It takes about 2,000 more members. If we could sign up 2,000 bow hunters next year that would stay members and not just quit after the year was over, we would have that person paid for. And I think you would see a huge difference within just a couple of years on what we were able to get done to keep fighting these battles and keep bow hunting. That's what we want to do.
So, Jim, that's one really good reason to become a member of Pope and Young Club. What are some other reasons to become a member?
Well, basically to keep up with what's going on, to communicate with other bow hunters, and Brian, that it is the best source of information for bow hunters in the world, bar none, because you're a part of an organization of like-minded people and a whole bunch of, lack of a better word, older people that's already done what you want to do bow hunting wise. And, all of those people recognize that, yeah, you're a bow hunter, but, you're a Pope and Young member. Well, yeah, I'm going to give you more information because you're serious about it. So there's that. I always say if you want to hunt all over the United States and find new opportunities, the first place to go is become a Pope and Young member. And then you're part of the group that does that. And the information is almost at your fingertips. And there's ancillary benefits. We get discounts from certain corporate partners, and we have the convention, and we get together and have a great time. That's huge as well. If you're actually a guy that goes to the convention every other year. But then we can get into our records. I don't know if don't know if it's time to segue into that, but entering an animal in the record book and keeping those statistics are extremely valuable, and they're used all the time to benefit bow hunting.
Just jumping back a little bit to the crossbow issue. Now, I've tried to have a group discussion, and it's almost impossible to have a group discussion on the crossbows. It is a difficult conversation at some level because we are looking at crossbows as a whole from coast to coast and from top to bottom, but every state has their challenges, and so what the reason for them becoming legal in I'm just throwing the state out there, I don't know that it's, say Alabama or, Tennessee, those game departments might be geared towards needing to kill more animals, So they see it as a way to kill more deer. They have to. But when you look at it as in the western states, the management is really for the game. It's just the opposite. They're trying to increase or maintain opportunity while preserving the resource. So it's a difficult conversation there, but that muddies the water because people say, well, we've had crossbows legal down here, and my 8-year-old can shoot one, and there's no problem with them. They shouldn't be considered, detriment to the sport. That to me is super frustrating, and hopefully it's not as widely held belief as maybe I'm led to believe, but. I just had to throw that in there because it is a little bit frustrating because I think sometimes people are pretty short-sighted on this.
I couldn't agree more, and we are facing the issue where it is a different issue in different locales. Like you said, in the eastern part of the country, there's places where the game departments, they just want to kill deer, or whatever it takes to kill deer, and you have that. And then you have the western part of the country where they're managing hunters. They're not really managing wildlife. They do have a limited number of animals they can kill, and they want to create the most opportunities for as many people given that finite resource. And that's kind of the reason we've been lucky to keep them out of the western states, is because Uh, they don't need to kill more animals. They need more hunters to have a better experience. And when the crossbow success in almost every state is higher than the rifle success, you just can't look at a crossbow and say that's a primitive weapon that allows for more opportunity. Yeah. It's a sophisticated weapon that allows a person to kill an animal quicker. And is that really what they want? Or do they want more days in the field, more quality time in the field, rather than just killing the animal and maintaining the population?
A couple of the comments that stuck in my head, one guy said, and maybe it rings true because in Idaho here, I get one deer tag. And this guy wasn't in Idaho, but he says, I get one deer tag a year, and it really shouldn't matter how that deer tag's filled. Well, it's like, you talk about a way to cut back your opportunity. You might still get one deer tag, but you might only have 3 days to fill it when, you got tens of thousands of crossbows running around with a higher success rate. And somebody else said, how is the compound? And this is probably more commonly held sentiment, is like, how is the compound okay and a crossbow not? And, of course, that's from a trad guy. And to that, you're not going to see a 7 or 8 year old pick up a compound and shoot 70, 80 yards, but you damn sure are going to see it with a crossbow. They're putting them on tripods. They got scope sights. All the kid's got to do is lean in there and squeeze the trigger, and man, he's a successful hunter now.
Yeah, and that is the very first talking point. Like you said, a 9-year-old kid can't pick up a compound bow and be accurate at 50 yards. Even within an entire year of practicing. Whereas a 9-year-old kid that shot a rifle a few times can shoot a crossbow off the bench and hit the target at 50 yards just as much as an adult. So it's just apples and oranges. It's just simply not the same thing. And it's not a bow and arrow. You got to keep saying that. It is, do we want to allow a 30-06 in the bow season? Because that's what they're saying. And what we're saying is we believe that even though compound bow is not all that primitive, we believe it's more of a traditional type of a hunt, and it takes a lot of practice to get good enough with any kind of bow to be successful.
Well, when we were chatting earlier, did you say that Alaska currently had 5 crossbow proposals moving forward?
Yeah, so sitting on the desk right here, Mike Harris sent me down from the Alaska Bowhunters Association, sent me down the 5 proposals that they're going to be that are before the Alaska Game and Fish Department. Number one, I don't want to put you on the spot. You may not be aware of that, but how could Alaska Bowhunters Association, how can they get help from Pope and Young on that?
Well, the first thing they have to do is let us know what they're dealing with. What is the proposed legislation, and we can take a look at what we've dealt with before and give them advice on what we've seen that works. And certainly send them all, like I said, all information, PowerPoint information, statistics, documentation from Game and Fish departments on what happened when they allowed crossbows and how things changed. And we're not reinventing the wheel. It's been done before. They just have to let us know what they need.
Yeah. So I just to put a cap on it, for me personally, I get to have my opinion out there, as do my guests, but I just see, the younger crowd, and speaking to traditional hunters specifically, the younger crowd is not really joiners. The 3 of us, we grew up in a time where you joined an organization because that's how you communicated. But at the same time, by joining that organization, you were counted when legislation came up, when you were lobbying for seasons. The Pope and Young has X amount of members, or, fill in the blank. So getting these younger people to understand and to buy in how important it is. I'll just throw something out there, like, if as a trad guy you get heartburn over expandable broadheads or lighted nocks, or fill in the blank that the Pope and Young accepts. there's got to be a line in the sand for you, speaking to whoever out there, that says, you know what, we all need to stand together against this. And for me, it's the crossbow, and it's a continued push. So really, that's kind of like where I'm coming from on this. So I would really urge people to think hard about to standing up and gathering forces and joining the Pope and Young.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And you know, I get so aggravated that the younger generation just aren't joiners, and you know, that's bullshit. I don't know how else to put it. It's total bullshit. You are relying, or you're reaping what we sowed 50 years ago. You're benefiting from what has happened before you. And if you're too freaking lazy or too cheap to just go out and join a state organization or national organization, you know, I don't even consider you a bow hunter anymore. I know that's pretty rough, but, you know, holy crap, people have to stand up and do something to protect the things they love. And just saying, oh, I don't like to join, or you know, they did this once and that pisses me off. You know, that's not good enough. If you don't like it, you don't like what the club did, you know, become a member and voice your opinion. Don't just walk away and totally abandon the one of the best hopes we have of keeping bow hunting. You know, I'm going to call you out. If you're not a member of at least the state organization, you don't deserve to call yourself a bow hunter.
Bam. I like it.
That tough enough for you?
I like it. Go ahead.
I guess speaking of membership and specifically the younger generation, how is Pope and Young leveraging social media to reach out to that group to get them involved?
You know, that's an ongoing battle. We hired a marketing guy back in 12 or 13. Rick Mowry, he was an industry guy. He'd been at Boning forever, and you know, he knew all of the guys within the industry, and he did that for a while and did a pretty good job. We have a new guy now, Dylan Ray, a young social media guy, doing it at a different level. So it's been an ongoing battle. I don't know how much you watch social media, but we are on Facebook, you know, multiple times a day, and Instagram, and you know, I guess they do Twitter and Parler and all of that stuff. I think they're on all of it. You know, personally, I'm getting so fed up with the whole social media thing, I'm about ready to walk away. So I may not be the guy to ask, but I do know, I see Facebook updates several times a day, whether it's just sharing a photo of an animal and somebody talking about their hunt, or you know, just what's going on with the club. So, you know, I think we're doing pretty good. You can always do more, but you know, all you can do is just keep throwing it out there and try to figure out what works.
Yeah, and I know Pope and Young's got a podcast as well that I think Dylan hosts with a guy named Jason. So, you know, I've enjoyed that podcast as well. So people should check that out.
Yeah, that's correct. And you know, just Zach Walton, a senior member and a younger guy within the club. I think at the time, he was the youngest senior member in the club. He started the podcast, but just like is the case all over the country, he was a volunteer, and he did it when he could, and it was hit and miss, and he did a great job. I'll give him that. But then you might go a month without the next one coming out, which, you know, that doesn't encourage a following. So now Dylan Ray, our social media guy, and Jason Roundsville, our executive director, they co-host the Pope and Young podcast, and they have a new episode out every week. It's you know, like clockwork, and you know, I think they've been doing it about 5 or 6 weeks now since they took it over from Zach, and doing a great job. You know, they both kind of surprised me at how well they are at interviewing people. So that's been good. They're doing great.
I'll have to check it out. I had listened previously when the first guy was doing it, but yeah, I have been seeing it pop up. I have not listened. I'll have to check it out. So Jim, one thing, speaking personally, in my in my past, I've viewed the Pope and Young at times is not really relating to me. You know, I'm a guy that might hunt one other state a year, maybe. And it seems like the Pope and Young a lot of times is about guys that are going on these high dollar hunts, sheep hunts, brown bear hunts. Is that perception is that a fair assessment? Are you guys do you feel it's like that, or am I just looking too deep into it?
Well, that's kind of a two-part question. There are people that feel like the club is filled with elitist bow hunters. You'll even hear people that say, well, they're just a bunch of traditional bow hunters, and that's simply not true. But sometimes perception is kind of close to reality, and sometimes it's not. The problem we've dealt with since our very founding is the founders of the Pope and Young Club wanted to mirror the Boone and Crockett Club. And the Boone and Crockett Club is pretty much an elitist organization. They still to this day only have 100 members, what they call members. They'll let you join as an associate to support the club, but you have no say in the operation of the club, and you cannot become a member until one of the others drops out. And then you have to be sponsored, and then it's ungodly expensive. And so we started out thinking we could do that, and the problem we ran into was the founders of the Boone and Crockett Club were multi-millionaires in their day, and the founders of the Pope and Young Club were bow shop guys, and Fred Bear, and we simply could not be what they wanted to be, and because of that legacy, we've been trying to modernize our membership structure time and time again to make it work out. And our membership structure is somewhat elitist. The club never wanted some organization to come in and say, you know what, we got 1,000 members. Let's all 1,000 of you go join the Pope and Young Club, and we're going to change the Pope and Young Club tomorrow because you'll have the votes to do it. Nobody wants that to happen. So you, even to this day, you have to have been a member for 5 years to become a voting member. And that's kind of elitist. But it's also protectionist. That's protecting us and protecting our sport. To be honest, if you haven't been a member for 5 years, you're not really qualified to try to move the club in a different direction. We also have some other standards that you have to get through to become a voting member, and that is you have to be a real bow hunter. You have to have killed some animals with your bow and arrow. And to become a regular member, you not only do you have to be a member for 5 years, but you have to have taken either 3 different species with your bow and one that makes the record book, or we recently changed it to where it can be all the same species, but you have to have 3 in the book. And what we're getting at there is we've always wanted experienced and traveled serious bow hunters to make the decisions for the club. Now that's just to become a voting member. You can still become a member tomorrow. Anybody that wants to can be a member. And you do have some say within the club. You just can't change the bylaws of the club and completely change the club. So we've dealt with that forever, and our membership structure at one time, you had to be a member 14 years before you could advance to regular membership. And here's the bad thing about that. Believe it or not, when they changed that to 14 years, the minutes of the meeting, they discussed that the Pope and Young Club was getting too many members. We have to do something to curtail the voting membership. So they changed it to 14 years. And you know what? That worked. But not only did that curtail the voting membership, that squashed all membership growth. It was a terrible idea. But we're getting past that. And then now just the image of the general public, you look at our board of directors, and there's really no traveling, popular celebrity bow hunter on our boards. We're just a bunch of bow hunters, and we've never really, whether right or wrong, we've never really promoted the Super Slam guys and the Grand Slam guys. We go out of our way to represent the average bow hunter. So if there's the impression that we're elitist, it can really only come from our membership structure, which we have changed dramatically in the last few years. Beyond that, I don't see where they get it from.
Well, I say time and time again, it's easier to build something, i.e. the Pope and Young or whatever organization. It's far easier to build something than it is to maintain it. You guys are certainly, been around long enough that you're in the maintain and you're trying to tweak it and make it relevant and make it work. So I get that.
Yeah. And Zach used to say it great on his podcast, which I don't totally agree with, but he would say, not all bow hunters are for Pope and Young Club, but the Pope and Young Club is for all bow hunters. And I'm to the position where, man, if you're really a bow hunter and you're not doing something to support the concept of bow hunting, Fred Bear said it best. You're either working for bow hunting or you're working against it. There's really no in between.
No, there's certainly. What was the one, Brian, that you and I were talking about? Gene Hopkins laid on us about. I think it was Glenn St. Charles had said. I think I've used it a couple of times since then.
Yeah, I remember. I can say it.
Go ahead.
And it wasn't Glenn St. Charles. It was John Masaccio, the inventor of Muzzy broadheads, and he was Michelle Eichler's dad. He said everybody wants to be something in bow hunting. Nobody wants to do something for bow hunting.
There you go. Yeah.
Jim, you bring up some really good points there regarding, Pope and Young being something and working for all bow hunters. And I know when I think of Pope and Young, one of the things I think of are the conservation activities. So can you highlight on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So, just getting back to history, we started out as the record keeping organization, which was extremely important at the time. We wouldn't have had the season or the successes we got without the statistics to show that we were good. And then, you're cruising along and things are going good and you're finally getting bow seasons and just, pretty much every state we have separate bow seasons and they work good for us. So, now what are we going to do? We need to just keep working. So we created a conservation program, conservation committee, and the purpose of that committee is to raise funds to do conservation projects. And let's be honest, everybody does that. But the Pope and Young Club decided, let's do specific bow hunting conservation projects, something that can impact bow hunting in one way or another. And, I should have the number, but it's the money we've raised and donated is in the millions towards conservation. And then we realized that, it's not just about conservation, it's creating new bow hunters too. So we changed the program to conservation, education, and outreach to help cover some of those other things. And we were, really involved when NASP, the National Archery in the Schools program, was getting off the ground. So we were involved with that through a conservation program. We've donated a ton of money for the archery programs within the Boy Scouts over the years. And one of the more recent ones was we were really instrumental in helping get the Scholastic 3D archery program off the ground. They were dwindling and really having a tough time until we stepped in and gave them some seed money and gave them board members to help as well. So we've done that, and here's where I should have my list in front of me to talk about other things. But it's anything from research for sheep or deer or elk in a specific area that will increase the opportunities. Bear studies to show how many bears are in a certain area that can allow an increase in licenses, increased opportunities. The opportunities are just kind of limitless. and we pick and choose through the committee and through the chairman. We pick and choose what we can do on a yearly basis that will help bow hunters in the future.
You know, I just had to grab my lovely wife ran in with the cord because my computer was about to die. And in that bag, was the winter issue of Ethics. What do they call it? Yeah. The magazine, Pope and Young magazine, quarterly.
Yeah.
And in there, it just happens to be an article and photo about Will Compton. Pretty cool.
Yes, sir.
So
that's part of our history, and that's part of our museum program.
Okay. Hey, Jim, one of the things that I was intrigued about when I attended the Omaha convention was Alan Boland was talking about the new online trophy database, if you will, where hunters could look at, if they wanted to hunt moose or whatever, they could go onto this database and really do a lot of research. So you want to talk about that for a second?
Oh, yeah, great question. I'm glad you brought that up. And that gets back to a benefit of being a member. So we have created a phenomenal tool for bow hunters to use. And it's called the Pope and Young Record Search. Boone and Crockett already had a tool out there. They call it Trophy Search. So we had to come up with a different name. So all you have to do is go to our website, Pope and Young Club, and upper left-hand corner, there's a red box that says Pope and Young Record Search. And anybody that goes on the website can get access to a basic search. And one thing that will allow you to do is you can look up anybody's name and see all of the records they have in the book, or your own name. But then we also have an advanced part of that record search that costs money to do it. It costs money to maintain these records. It was, big old chunk of money just to create the programming. So we have a two-tiered system. One is the free access, and the other one is the paid access. And that's another benefit of becoming a voting member of the Pope and Young Club. Once you're a regular member, after you've done your 5 years and you advance your regular membership, you get that advanced search for free. Whereas the general public, if they want the advanced search, I think it's $50 a year, I think is what it is. And it's the reason I say I think that is because there's another price for majors and another price for general members and that sort of thing. But anyhow, just about all of our records data is at your fingertips at one way or another. And even if you're not a member, you go on the website and look at that and, pull up Chuck Adams' name and see how many records he has in the book and what they are. It's a pretty cool tool. And, our records are obviously by area. You can break it down to county. You could break it down to look at the time or the era in time, whether the trophies were taken last year or 20 years ago or whatever. So yeah, that's another benefit of not only being a Pope and Young Club member, but just a benefit from the Pope and Young Club.
Is it going to narrow it down to the tree, speaking of whitetails? Because I could use that.
No, we're still bow hunters and we still have to work at it.
That's good. What are we missing? Anything we didn't cover you wanted to hit on, Jim?
Yeah, we're always beaten to death the crossbow deal, but let's one last thing on there, especially with states and areas where you're looking at crossbow being forced down your throat. I think we made a huge mistake as bow hunters in general and not recognizing that this is just going to happen. And I know there's been some podcasts with some of the older guys that got it right in their states, and what they did was they were proactive and said, okay, we're going to have crossbows. So as a bow hunting organization, let's really support crossbows in this one area, the least amount of damage and the least amount of effect on us. And let's just look at Colorado, for instance. They have really ideal season structure for muzzleload hunting for deer and and elk and other species, antelope, all of that. So why not push to get the crossbow legal in that season, where it's not directly affecting bow hunters and taking away opportunities for bow hunters? Because modern crossbow literally is very similar to a modern muzzleloader, especially a muzzleloader where they don't let you use scope like in Colorado. So, let's take a proactive stance in some of these areas and say, okay, yeah, you can have crossbow in the season. We'll give you this season, and make it good enough to where they can't ever come back and say we have no opportunity. Because if they do that, if they have no opportunity, it's obviously a valid tool to harvest animals, and it's getting really, really popular. So let's give them a home and try to protect our home.
Yeah, that's a good point. In Idaho, you have general seasons, so I got to hunt with my recurve in November with modern centerfire rifles. So and I do it happily. But if you want to shoot a crossbow, you can jump right in. There's a season for you. Jump right in and hunt with the modern centerfire rifles.
Yeah, and that's another point I like to make to people, that what is a bow hunter? What constitutes being a bow hunter? A specific thing. Just going out and hunting with a bow is not necessarily make you a bow hunter. You feel like a bow hunter, but you're really not. And what it really comes down to is a real bow hunter will hunt with a bow during the rifle season. The other bow hunter will not. As soon as he can legally pick up a rifle, he'll pick up a rifle. And that's being kind of elitist, but that's why we created bow hunting seasons to begin with, was to give the people who wanted to be bow hunters a home. And if you're the type that will hunt with a bow during the rifle season, you are a bow hunter.
Well, I appreciate that, Jim. But you hit on something there, and it's not that it's bad. If a guy just wants to hunt in September because it's an archery season, and then pick up a rifle in November, you're absolutely right. I mean, that guy could be a bow hunter, but more than likely he's an opportunistic guy. He just wants to hunt, and that's cool. But the vanguards of our sport are the guys that are going to hunt with a bow, no matter the season. If it's legal, they're hunting with a bow. So I think that's pretty good to point out. Those are the volunteers at our state organizations and national organizations for sure.
Yeah, no, those are the ones like us who take it so seriously. We live, breathe, and eat bow hunting. We are the ones that are going to do what it takes to preserve our sport. And there are a lot of people out there that are like-minded, think the same thing, that are just sitting back and watching it happen. And man, we need you guys on board. Like I said, there's just 2,000 more members, allows for another paid employee, that allows for more information to get out that could save us who knows what down the road.
Before I forget now, a guy like Mike Harris up there in Alaska, who's working his butt off his own time to help protect and promote, or any other of the Mike Harrises in any of these states, who specifically should they get a hold of when they have 5 pieces of legislation here to combat in their state? Is there anybody specifically at Pope and Young they need to get a hold of?
Well, yeah, specifically we have an executive director. That's Jason Roundsville. And you can go to our website and find out how to get in touch with that person. It's never a bad idea to get a hold of Jason and copy Kurt Ebers, our president, and always go directly to the top. Yeah. Just in case one person's out hunting, and you know how we are. There's times we're gone for 2 or 3 weeks, and we're just off the grid. So, shotgun effect, get a hold of the executive director and get a hold of a couple of board members, and somebody will address it fairly quickly.
And I am assuming that when you're facing issues in your state, you don't have to be a Pope and Young member to just alert you guys that, hey, we got this going on.
No, absolutely not. anybody who asks for help to protect and defend bow hunting, we're going to do what we can to help you out.
So where do people go to find out more information if they have any questions? Is there somebody they can get a hold of, you or who's willing to ask questions or answer questions?
Oh, yeah, I'll field the questions, and like I said, on our website you can get a hold of just about anybody. I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook, and I've been on Instagram. I've been trying to cut back. I actually haven't looked at Instagram for at least a month now, and I'm pretty proud of that. But you can get a hold of me or any of the other board members, and we'll gladly talk to you about bow hunting, anything about bow hunting.
So, Jim, you just urge people to go to the website. You want to join, you can check the Pope and Young out, kind of look at some history. Is that correct? We missing anything there?
That's correct. No, just get involved. Everything we do is at stake right now. There are people that want to take bow hunting away from us, and people who want to take hunting away from us. And of course, there's rifle hunters that want our seasons, and there's crossbow hunters and muzzleloader hunters. Everybody wants what we have, and just stop calling it divisive. If we're trying to keep something we've worked so hard to get in the first place, we're not going to just stand back and let you have it. We're going to fight for it.
Well, we had to fight to get it. We're going to fight to keep it too.
Absolutely.
So, mostly this podcast is probably, gosh, that's an interesting thought. I'm going to say 80% traditional. You got a lot of compound guys. Listen, speaking to the trad guys, you guys have a record book, don't you? Just set up for traditional.
We do have, yes, and this all of our books are on a 6-year cycle. Of course, we have the all-time Pope and Young Club records, North American Big Game records. That's every type of bow, and from 1919 on up. So we have over 100 years worth of records. But all of our books are set on a 6-year cycle, and we just published the third. Well, almost a year ago now, but the third traditional only record book, which includes only, animals taken with a longbow, recurve, or self bow. So it's considerably smaller. It's a lot smaller than our regular record book. But that book came out, I believe, back in May. And, it's the one record book that I look at 10 times more than any others. As a trad guy, I want to compare apples and apples. I want to see how I'm doing compared to other trad guys, and see where we stand with even the compound guys, how well we're doing. But this new record book came out back in May, and I believe it's $40 or $45. Once again, you can go to our website and look at it and order it. But has a bunch of great stories about stories from Aaron Snyder and Donnie Vincent of their transition from compound to trad. A few other, young bow hunters, Nick White, and he may have been the only other one on transition. Articles from South Cox, and of course myself. I was the editor, so I have articles in there, and just a whole bunch of really good traditional only articles, and then all of our traditional only records. So it's a really neat resource for trad guys. I encourage you to get the book. It's a hardcover book. I'm really proud of how it turned out. My first time editing a book, and had some real serious deadline issues, and then the COVID issues and all of that, and we got it out, and it's available to people.
And I will point out a book like that. People that are pursuing traditional only seasons, a book like that's going to be certainly a help, because believe it or not, there are game departments and commissioners out there who question the lethality of traditional equipment. As crazy as that sounds, we have come full circle, and so a book like that is certainly a tool.
Yeah, and you brought up something else that pertains to this. We're currently using our traditional only statistics to try to get traditional bow hunting gear legalized in Greenland. As it stands right now, you can bow hunt in Greenland, but you can only use a compound bow. And the club's been working with their Department of Game, whatever they call it, Ministry of Game, something like that, for about 3 years now, trying to get legalized traditional bow hunting equipment in Greenland. And boy, it's a tough battle. But the only way you win those battles is with statistics and facts. So we're working on that, and I don't know if we'll ever crack it, but we're trying.
Well, it's been a great discussion, Jim. Again, thank you for your time, and someday we need to talk about hunting.
Yeah, that'd be all right. I go on a few hunts, and you go on a few hunts, and we can compare notes a little bit.
Well, good luck with your Coos deer hunt for sure.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm really looking forward to it. I haven't been since I think 2014, maybe 15. So it's just been killing me not to be down there somewhere in January.
Right on. Well, stay on the line for a minute, guys. But thanks again, Jim. We'll talk to you later.
All right, it's been a pleasure.